Today we continue our study of the book of Colossians, where we're starting in chapter 2, verse 8, which says, "See to it that no one takes you captive through philosophy and empty deceit according to human tradition." Now, Paul knew a little bit about that because he had spent the first half of his life captured by human traditions, and now he studied the scriptures, he knew them very well, but he had tried to do every little thing that the law commanded and every little thing that people said you needed to do in order to do everything that the law commanded. And they sort of fenced the law in such a way as to make it even more difficult to follow. And he had eventually come to the end of himself and realized, this won't work. I can't do all these things. And so he also wants to be an evangelist for this kind of freedom. Don't be taken captive through philosophy and empty deceit according to human tradition. As we approach change, that's exactly the thing that we need to avoid is, philosophy, empty deceit, and human traditions. It's wonderful to remember the good things that have happened in places like Humanity United Methodist Church, and to know that we were serving God in ways for many years, ways that we aren't serving God quite exactly right now. Now, I hope that we can extract those principles and then apply them to the modern day, but I don't think we need to go back to those traditions and do the things that we used to do, because they won't do what they once did. In fact, many times when megachurches have great success, they package this success and try to sell it to other churches. Well, it very rarely works well, because that megachurch was in a particular place and time and situation, and the church that buys this package is not. And so it's not that those principles don't work, it's just that you cannot follow the practices, the traditions that church had set up and that had succeeded for them in our time and place. Paul wants to remind the Colossians in verse 13, "When you were dead in trespasses and the uncircumcision of your flesh, God made you alive together with him when he forgave all our trespasses." And so he wants us to know we're good enough. We don't need to fix everything that is wrong with us first. We already know enough. We've already been set next to God. He wants to work with us, to walk alongside of us and help us to break through the difficulties that we are in front of us. And those chains of our past sins, they are illusions. We don't need to be held back by those chains, nor do we need to be held back by the chains of our past successes, because both of those can be chains if you spend too much time with them and fail to face the future, which is an uncertain future. Now, the problem that he was particularly addressing in Colossae was this, in verse 16. "Therefore, do not let anyone condemn you in matters of food and drink, or of observing festivals, new moons, or Sabbaths. These are only a shadow of what is to come, but the substance belongs to Christ." So the church of Colossae was dealing with a bunch of teachers who would come in and said, "Hey, you guys aren't serious enough about Christianity. You need to change by changing what you eat, changing what you drink, changing which festivals you observe and how you observe them." And it was creating this huge burden on those people, and it was taking away their freedom to express their love for Christ in whatever way just came to them naturally. And Paul could just see it. He could see these chains just taking them and dragging them down, so that while they might have looked more religious by observing all these little rules, it was not in fact the case that they were more religious. They were in fact less so. They were being captured by these vain philosophies. And so when we move forward into an uncertain future, in a world that's coming back from COVID, we have to look at what's going to work today, not what worked yesterday. And we got to look at the principles of why the gospel works in various contexts, how we can make that go into the future. But that doesn't mean relying on past practices. And it doesn't mean putting on ourselves a huge burden of guilt or observances or rules. All those things are not going to get us the freedom we need to face an uncertain future and overcome it in the name of Jesus Christ.